evening. The time is 6 p.m. I would like to call to order the Norwood City School District Board of Education Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 10th. Mrs. Camphouse, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Atwood, absent. Ms. Bernard is absent. Mrs. Brereton?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Present. All right, if you would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, continuing on with the agenda, item 3 is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Mrs. Brereton?
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. All right, with our agenda adopted, we can go ahead with item 4, which is our discussion items. And we have our principal from the middle school, Mr. Joe Westendorf, here to share an update with us on the middle school. So, Mr. Westendorf, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, Mrs. Rowland, and staff here. Thank you for having me, giving me a chance to speak about the wonderful things going on at the middle school. Great picture of the, as we call it, the grand old lady, Sherman Avenue. So this year, and I think of the whole calendar year, we've had, for myself, having been the first time I've presented involving the middle school, it's been a very enlightening and very encouraging thing to be a part of the middle school. Very underrated community, underrated group of students and staff. So first piece of that is our new staff additions. This year we've added Miss Reichert, Kayla Reichert. She teaches 7th and 8th grade math. She's a Reach and Xavier grad. Was very interested in Norwood schools, having spent some of her internship time in our buildings. Now lives in Norwood, is coaching our middle school basketball team, and has shown that commitment to our students already. Miss Kristen Kuzman is teaching English Language Arts, 7th grade teacher. She's jumped right into our English department. It's been a great asset as part of our new curriculum adoption, as she's done it at her previous district. And Mr. Marcus Davis is joining us, working with our English language learners across all 3 levels, which has certainly been a growing population in the middle school over the last 2 years. So 3 great additions. I think they've really increased the level of professionalism in our building. Another piece of our work is our academics, of course. It's the anchor of our work. Last year, we did have a state report card rating of 3.5 stars. Certainly not an area where we want to, only where we want to go is up. So I did want to highlight 2 areas that we did do well in, and that was our progress area and our gap closing. Just a simple description of growing students based on their past performances and closing the gaps that kids may have educationally. So with that, I won't speak too much about data. I don't want to go too far into that, but a big piece of that is value added. And value added is based on the evidence and projected growth that a student should make from year to year. It's some pretty interesting, pretty interesting math if you come down to the basics of it, of how these scores are projected. But it shows a lot of the work that teachers do to grow in more than a year's worth of growth. Our 6th grade math are Algebra 1, and that's a hard group to grow as they're already high achievers already. And our 8th grade sciences groups all moved up to a top category, which you get 3 levels of effectiveness, and that's light blue's the highest, significant evidence you make growth, green is kind of your standard growth, and yellow is less growth than expected. So 7th grade ELA and 8th grade math were already there, and we moved up 3 other categories up to that level. Mm-hmm. With that, a big piece of that is the U.S. News and World Report every other year, I believe, has now looked at schools across the country, not just colleges, and their biggest component of identifying great schools is student growth. And this is kind of where I was fortunate enough to receive an email earlier this year stating that we were one of those top-rated schools in Ohio, according to the U.S. News and World Report.
Yes.
I do want to shout out some of our teachers. I had to write these down in here so I could remember them all. In terms of that light blue growth, and this is percentiles of teachers who are at least in the top tier of teachers in Ohio. It's nice to be able to dig down into the data and talk about individual teacher success, but I'd also say the kids were the ones that were the successful ones in the end. Ms. Brockman and Mrs. Donovan's class, or their teaching and their students performed in the top 20% effectively in the state of Ohio. Mr. Lueking's 8th grade math was in the top 23%. Algebra 1 was in the top 16%. Mrs. Mossing top 10%. And Miss Walters was in the top 10 for one class and the top 8 for another. Again, this is teachers and students achieving higher than the projected growth that the state of Ohio, how the data states that they should achieve. So that's where we'll also fill the gaps where our achievement score was not where we wanted it to be. These are the kind of things that you have to have and that will improve our achievement score. Another piece of that, we as always, we're always assessing kids. I would say the most valuable assessment is our map data, which we just survived through today with a little bit of an internet outage. But our students do a very good job, especially at a challenging age, of making sure they put their best work in to show their teachers what they know and what they don't know. And I find the map data valuable. If it wasn't state mandated at some point or anything else, it's a great tool for instruction. I always found value in it, and our teachers do too. Most recently, our August to December data. So some of these I had to crunch just yesterday. Overall, our students have increased their average growth almost 4 points. Based on national averages, it's 12% higher than the national growth. So that was a great sign to see. Our students do especially well from the start of the year to essentially what we're at the middle of the year. Going backwards here. Another piece of that, my slides are going everywhere here. We'll go this way. Graduation is obviously our goal. We have this year something new to 8th grade, and they will begin in January, is doing a program called Lead for Change, and this helps them work towards one of their graduation seals. So the goal is, obviously, they're leaving 8th grade already with one seal towards their graduation. If you're an Algebra 1 kid or a Spanish student, you might be in a school or high school with 2 credits and a seal. So we saw this as an opportunity. It's free money. It's a free program. It's a great program. More importantly, it's teaching kids about what a leader is and what leadership looks like. And it was something we couldn't pass on. So to quote the program, we believe everyone has the potential to be a great leader, no matter the age, background, career, ambition. And they're proud to support students all over the country develop into great leaders. So what our classes will do with this is, aside from the learning modules, turn that into a service project that their grade will work on together, student-led, and they have basically it's students taking charge, obviously the leadership component, and agreeing on which service projects they're going to come up with, what they're going to do together, and bring that to culmination in the end. We have a nice big group to be able to do that this year. Always want to talk about our arts and extracurriculars. A shout out to our girls volleyball team. I'm sure Mr. Richardson spoke about them if he's been at any of the board meetings since. That girls team, both A and B team, finished in the 2nd place in their tournament. I believe tied for 1st in the regular season. Great group of young ladies on and off the court. And off the court, I want to give them a shout out. They have a team average, an individual average of a grade point average of a 3.755 for the first quarter.
Fantastic.
While winning on the court as well. Our orchestra program, which was middle school and high school, had great performance the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Very well attended.
I was in tears.
It was a very good show.
It was so good.
We're still practicing this
I can show
afternoon
you
with
videos.
some of the, we have some guest musicians that come in frequently, so that was very, very rewarding to see. Our band concert's this Thursday at 7. I have a picture on there from the rehearsal. Getting ready for that, and a choir concert next Thursday as well, both in the Dr. Kathy Sable Auditorium. Something else I'm working on in the building is a little flair, a little touch to add to the building without, while keeping the beautiful character of an old building. So when you walk into the entryway of the office, it's a big empty wall, but fire extinguishers, the highlight of the display. We'd like to change that. So we have a nice big welcome sign for folks there. This doorway here is not the exterior door, but the vestibule doorway. So we thought that was a good place. Outside of the building, it's too pretty of a building to put something out there, unless it's a sign that says USD's Orphan Port Pass. That's okay. Our main office doors, we're gonna cover those as well, and that's also an added security feature as well. And then some signs around the building, just kind of getting your way around the building. I need those signs as much as anybody else. I'm convinced I will never learn my entire way around. Another piece to that here in the middle school is we like to have fun. It's a challenging age, a challenging time for kids, but our kids do a great job. So I have a whole slew of pictures on there. Normally I don't put myself in a picture, but I snuck in at the photo booths at our Halloween dance. The kids do a great job. We enjoy the time we spend at school. Pep rallies, field trips. Our sixth grade feels like they go on a field trip every single week, which is great. Get them out of the community and explore new places. But certainly wanted to throw in a little fun for there. I feel like I'm skipping a slide here, so if you don't mind, I will run back real quick. If not, I talked very fast and covered everything. But perhaps I did. I did cover everything. So I will reiterate, having been now in year 2 at the middle school and not really knowing anything about the middle school, being at the high school and being in elementary, it's a great group of kids, an underrated age group of kids. I never would have known that, having not been there. And the teaching staff that's definitely as good or as great as any that I've been around. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Just a fun picture.
Oh, yes. I do not take credit for that.
Any questions for Mr. Wesleywood?
And we did beat the students in that pep rally stand volleyball. We beat the girls' volleyball team.
Oh,
Thanks to our new teachers.
new young teachers. Huh?
Not exactly. The young guys.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wessendorf. All right, continuing item 5, this is personnel superintendent recommendations. So I will turn it over to our superintendent, Mrs. Roden.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have a short list tonight. We do have one resignation. Michelle's leaving us after about a year and a half in January for other employment. Then under employment, we do have a correction to make in number 2. We have the wrong Sarah listed as our technology integration specialist, so we're changing that. We have a change in status for Mr. Peter. And then under number 4, as you can see, we're starting to hire volunteers and still hiring some coaches for winter and spring. So we've got our wrestling volunteer, Avenues for Success. We're still hiring staff for after school programming, and we have a change of status from volunteer moving to our baseball coach. So like I said, it's a short list tonight, and thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Ronan. At this time, I will turn it over to Mrs. Rarica for item 6 on the agenda, which is the Education Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. We have some field trips going on. We have Sharpsburg going to Green Acres and the Cincinnati Art Museum, which I find exciting. And the high school is going to Cincinnati Reds College Prep Day. Good to know, because that's my kid going. So I'll have to ask her what they do. And Sharpsburg Elementary going to Green Acres.
All right.
And that's it.
All right, continuing on, we are to Policy Committee, so I will turn it over to Vice President Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm actually going to turn it over to Mrs. Chess.
Thank you, Vice President Taylor. So we have 10 policies this evening. The first policy, EDGA, is a first aid policy, and it just has updated to address the new requirements for AEDs, which are required in buildings. The next policy, JHG, which is reporting child abuse and mandatory training. It also reflects the inclusion of AED training during our in-service training requirements. It's the only change for that. The next policy is JK, which is the employment of students. This actually doesn't have a change in the policy. It's just a new legal reference. So those don't always have to be put in front of the board, but we just had it on our agenda, so we kept it there. So again, no changes in the words, only changes in the legal reference. The next policy, IKF, is a graduation requirement policy. And that policy is updated to reflect new permissions to allow students to have their 1/2 unit of financial literacy completed in the AP microeconomics course or AP macroeconomics course. We don't have either one of those AP courses right now, but in case we were to have it in the future, it's already in place in that graduation requirements. The next policy, IGD, and the one after that, which is IGDJ. So this is co-curricular and extracurricular activities and interscholastic athletics. Both of those policies have an update to reflect the new provision, and that provision authorizes the district superintendent to permit home educated students or students enrolled in non-public schools, community schools, STEM schools, STEAM schools, or a student enrolled in a different district to participate in interscholastic athletics. And so it's at the discretion of the superintendent. It says may in the policy, that the superintendent may allow that to happen if he or she so desires. So that allows some flexibility with that work. And it's based on what has gone on in their previous school that allows for that opportunity to potentially occur for students. We're an open enrollment district, so it wouldn't have as many ramifications for us. The policy after that one, JECBC, which is the admission of students from non-chartered or home educated policy, that's changed also because of that new provision that I just spoke of. It did change this policy a lot. In fact, it simplified it because since in the other two policies, they speak about non-chartered or home educated students, they took out a lot of the language in this policy because it's already in the other policies. So you'll see a lot of strike-throughs in this policy from a recommendation from OSBA, and merely because it's covered differently in the previous two policies. The next policy, IGACAE rather, is the home education policy. And that policy is updated to reflect a vocabulary change in the first paragraph and how they define that vocabulary in a health-related topic. It also allowed us to add in the opt-in for certain health programming ideas, so that's been updated in our policy. We've always allowed for both opt-out or opt-in provisions as required in state law with certain health topics, so that's always been in place for us, but this just catches the policy up with the practice and, again, a vocabulary change. The next policy, IGAH, and also IGAI, is the family life education, sex education policy. And that policy change also with a vocabulary change in terminology. And there was also updates to Ohio Revised Code. So those strike-throughs are reflected in that revised code. So it was important that this policy be updated so that we are in keeping with the new Ohio Revised Code. And the last policy is ECA, which is a building and grounds security policy. So that is updated to reflect just changes in our building and ground security and how we have opening and closing of doors throughout the district. And those 10 policies short this evening are our policies for this evening for your consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Chesson. Yes, compared to the last 2 months, that feels
Like a sprint.
pretty light.
I like it.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Rarica is going to fill in for Miss Ballard, so I will turn it over to her for item 8, which is building and grounds.
Thank you, Madam President. The Barracuda swim team is requesting use of Shea Stadium because they're going to have a big swim event tournament in July, and so each team will need the Shea area to put up their tents and for their staging areas, which looks kind of exciting.
All right. Continuing on with the agenda, item 9, this is our Finance Committee. So I will turn it over to Treasurer Mrs. Gibbs.
Thank you, Madam President. The CFO report, monthly financials, and change order listings are attached for your review. You will notice that we only have 2 change order listings to view as all other projects have been finished. 9.02 appropriation resolution, our current budget for the year. 9.03 approve additional scope for Williams beautification. The additional scope at Williams Avenue Elementary is to add a stormwater pump station. Williams Avenue Elementary has always had issues with stormwater flooding, as the Board of Education parking lot is the lowest spot in the neighborhood. When you consider that, along with the overburdened MSD stormwater system, you will understand our flooding issues during heavy rains. As the Board of Education parking lot will be regraded and replaced during beautification, now is the time for underground work. The stormwater pump station scope will be added with a cost not to exceed $200,000. 9.04 Johnson Controls Performance Design Agreement. Johnson Controls will be doing the work to plan upgrades at Norwood View. 9.05 Advanced taxes from the county auditor. In order to get a timely approval, I'm asking for this in December. Your approval allows me to draw down tax revenue as it is received at the county auditor's office rather than us waiting for the final settlement. This allows me to invest those funds for several months, earning interest income for the district. And that is the end of finance.
And just to clarify, under 9.04 Johnson Controls, you had mentioned Norwood View. That's actually North Norwood.
I'm sorry. Yes, North Norwood. I have it typed wrong. It's North Norwood.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. North Norwood.
And I want to say I'm really glad that they're going to look at the drainage system at Williams, because I lived across the street from the backside of Williams during that major storm of 2016. And my house was okay because I was on the other side of the street and we have a little bit of a hill, but all the houses that backed up to the school, it was insane. So, and I always wondered what can be done. So I am so glad
Good.
that we are taking a look at that. That was, it was major.
Yeah, there's no place for that water to go, so.
Right,
we're gonna
except
help
for
it
into
out.
the backyards of the vehicle
Yeah.
who are backed up.
So I'm sure they're very happy as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will tell anyone buying a house there, guess what? You will be safe. We are taking a look.
Yes.
All right. Item 10 on the agenda. This is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The time is 6:23, and we are adjourned from our committee meeting, but we will be moving into our special meeting. So the time is 6:23. I would like to call to order the Norwood City School District Board of Education special meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 10th. The Norwood City School District Board of Education follows bi-monthly meeting schedule. The first meeting of the month is called our committee meeting. At this meeting, we discuss fully our agenda for the board meeting to be held the third Thursday of each month. As board members, we encourage you to attend, watch, and listen to our committee discussion, resulting in action at the board meetings. For full disclosure, our committee meetings and board meetings are always announced, video and audio taped, as well as posted to our webpage for your view. All of our meetings are public and visitors are welcome. Mrs. Camphouse, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Atwood is absent. Ms. Ballard is absent. Mrs. Rarica?
Present.
Mr. Taylor? Present. Mrs. Cole?
Present. All right, item 1.03. This is the adoption of the agenda for the special meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I will move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. All right, with that, we can continue on with the meeting. Item 2, this is finance. So 2.01 to approve joint prosecution agreement. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Camphouse.
Thank you, Madam President. The joint prosecution agreement, by approving this document, the Board of Education is permitting the district to join with our insurance company to try and recoup costs from a large repair that we had in the past. You will remember 2 years ago, we had to replace our gym floor due to a flood. We believe that another party is responsible for the cost of that flood. During the prosecution or the settlement of this claim, we hope to subrogate those costs to another party, recouping some costs for us and our insurance company. So once you agree to that, if you agree to that, I will sign the document, send it off, and we'll start the procedures.
Okay.
Any questions on that at all?
Do I have a motion to approve the agreement?
I'll move to approve the joint prosecution agreement.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Campos?
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. All right. Item 3 on the agenda. This is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. The time is 6:26 and we are adjourned. Thank you.